Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
Okay, so this is your opportunity. Feel free to come off mic or type something in the chat. Myra and I don't really have any updates. I mean, if you're reading the newsletter, you're getting all the necessary updates. But if you have specific questions or things that maybe have come up in your consortium, feel free to ask it now. And I don't think there's any topics off the table, right, Myra?
No, just leaving this room open for an opportunity for you all to ask any questions. So feel free to unmute or type it in the chat.
I have a question.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, Neil. Hi, Myra. I sent this question in yesterday. The ed code that says that if you're going to start up a new CTE class, you have to do a labor market study. You have to do an adequate study to justify that there will be jobs in the region. But the language is kind of vague on that. So are there any more details on that? We have a member that wants to start up a new class and is this a formal written study, or is it enough to say, yes, we've looked at the data and we can justify this?
Well, yeah, and I can take this. Is it a K-12 member?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is language in the ed code that says specifically workforce investment or workforce development board study using labor market information. The way that's going to work on the K-12 side is it'll be, if you're receiving state apportionment, then you're going to be required next year to go into the course approval system that currently only WIOA 2 grantees were doing, but it's really set up for K-12 county offices that are receiving state apportionment. So they will go into that system, they'll select their courses. If it's a CTE course, then they will be asked when was the last labor market study. And so there'll be a drop-down menu that'll show the years. If it's a new CTE course and started after January 1st, 2022, then they should have a current labor market study. The way the ed code reads is once you do the labor market study, then you take it to your board, or you can take it to the consortia for approval, and then they look at it. And it's really up to the consortia or the board to judge the merits of that labor market study. The state's not going to review your labor market study, but your local board or consortia will. So that's where there might be an issue where like this isn't good enough, or you didn't give me enough information, so we're not going to approve it, or it's really up to them. With the state, we're just looking for you to tell us when that labor market study is, and maybe down the road, if there's an audit, we would, confirm that, but we're not currently auditing state funds. So does that help?
Well, kind of. I mean, so does it have to be a labor market study that you can produce, or?
Well, you can use one. It says using one developed by your local workforce board. I think it kind of gives you a kind of a wide range of options. I don't think they called out any specific, study, but they do, mention your local workforce boards and supplies chain and things like that. So they throw a couple of buzzwords in there, but really it's going to be up to whoever's the approving body, whatever the local board or the consortia really wants to see.
Okay.
So
then all new CTE courses from here on out should be approved by the consortium as a whole.
Right. And then also if you have non-WIOA 2 agencies, they will have to go through this process to do course approval just in general, which they've never had to do before.
Yeah, no, they're all WIOA 2 already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that does help.
All
Yeah,
right.
I got it. Okay, thanks.
Great. Sure.
Looks like there's a question in the chat by Janice. Hi guys, do we have a max percentage to carry over with CAP?
Well, let's see, I just ran the numbers. I don't know if this is Janeth's question, but we had 2 consortia come in above 20% on carryover. They had their carryover at 30% and 1 at 40%. But the rest, I mean, like 43 or 36 came in at 20%, and then 5 came in under 20%. So it's really up to you guys to determine, you know, for your member carryover, you can select whatever you want, but just looking at what people have selected, 36 selected 20, 5 went below 20, 2 went above 20, and then 26 opted not to put any carryover in the CFAD, but they might have their own bylaws that govern carryover that they were using before 1491.
Okay.
I don't know, Janet, does that answer your question?
Yes, Neil, I just wanted to make sure, like, I know that we have this new 20% carryover, but I know that with, like, let's say we do go over the 20% and we write the CAP, which is the correction action plan in NOVA, then we can, you know, share, yes, we do have over 20% carryover, but it's been encumbered and we're going to spend it in XYZ.
Oh, I see.
I just wanted to see, okay, well, we can carry over 40%, and explain that those funds will still be or have been encumbered and will be spent on time. But I want to make sure that we're not dinged for it as long as we have an explanation. Or is there a maximum even with an explanation?
I mean, Myra, do you want to explain? I mean, we're still working on the written expenditure plan, right?
Yeah, so at the moment, if you're looking at NOVA and the way that you're entering information, that will be updated to reflect the carryover logic. And our developers are currently working on finalizing that.
Okay.
So stay tuned for whenever we put forth our webinar on NOVA updates related to AB 1491.
Yes.
It will allow you to view it from that perspective, and those updates are still taking place at the moment.
Okay.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that webinar. We'll be able to provide additional context to how NOVA will be interpreting and collecting this data, how you'll be able to, because at the moment it's still reflective as it has been over the years, and it's not really looking at it from a carryover perspective.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That helps a lot because I know for the North Orange County Regional Consortium, I just shared and we'll be sharing at our May's meeting or executive committee meeting that we're going to be amending our bylaws to kind of include this 20% carryover threshold and also the member effectiveness, just to kind of make sure that it's updated. So what I'm hearing from you, and our goal is to have it ready for fall. Just kind of wait till we get more information about the NOVA input process of AB 1491 and then disseminate that information to be best prepared for those changes on a local level.
I'm trying to think how this would be best helpful. I know as you were trying to prepare for your meetings, I guess just trying to understand how you're going to be incorporating that into the bylaws. I think from the NOVA standpoint, as of right now, the logic and the percentages that you're inputting are tracking it on an expenditure basis versus the way that it's going to be applied and updated in NOVA. Those percentages that you'll be looking at are going to be tracking it on a carryover basis. So that's where that trigger in the CFAP was going to allow you to flag if the consortium voted to include a percentage, then and the new tools will be able to flag and show. I think right now, if we're looking at NOVA, like I said, it's not. It makes sense because you're not able to view. We're supposed to be incorporating an additional like monitoring tool that will be able to flag and show you what those percentages are looking like on the fiscal reporting.
Okay.
the consortium carryover balances. It'll also identify member carryover balances. There will be a trigger for the written expenditure plan. So until we can see all those updates, I think we'll have to think about how
Okay.
to, for you all, how to approach incorporating that into your bylaws.
Yeah, thank you. And it's not just, I get it. For me, just to clarify, it's not too so much to incorporate like the cement, the logistics of Nova. It's just like the purpose, right? And to how much do we carry over? I know that in our consortium, we opted out right now not to do a percentage on a member level, but to try to stay within that 20% threshold. Of course, if we do go over, with an explanation.
Right, and I know that, and as far as the way that we will be capturing it in Nova is, if the members are not putting forth at the consortia level that percentage, then that is where you still have, the consortia has the ability to reflect that on their bylaws as they wish. Whereas the only other level of tracking that will be occurring is at the state level, and there will be written expenditure plans. So I hope that kind of helps. It's still really up to you all and the members and the consortia to decide and outline in the bylaws as you guys wish to.
Yes, got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then I was responding in the chat. If I wasn't clear, if anybody wants to come off mic, but I think Holly, who's in the queue?
I'm sorry. Let me get to that.
Kelly, are you in the queue? Are you just no? Okay.
No, I think that, I mean, we have comments in the chat, of course. But I think
I answered Shannon's question, and Kathy had a follow-up question. I don't know if they want to come off mic, if they want to clarify anything.
I can just maybe clarify. So in our area, we have like super rural areas. And so like today, we just had a consortium meeting and we invited our workforce board and they gave a little presentation. And one of the biggest things that's needed is healthcare jobs. However, like for some of our sites, the closest hospital is, an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So for that, that site, if they were wanting to do healthcare, then, that might not be their number one pick for a CTE healthcare pathway because there's not a lot of jobs in that area. So we rely heavily on a local job list for those little tiny communities that don't have a lot going on, to see, okay, what are the jobs that are available out there? So I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding correctly that when the course approvals come out and we have a template of what we have for approval via the consortium based on that LMI data that the site kind of comes up with using multiple resources. We made that clear when we came up with this template. But I just want to make sure that we didn't also have to put the date that the latest Workforce Development Board LMI study came out when we have to approve it in the CDE system.
Yeah, I mean, for the K-12s, what you have to show is just your recent job market study, and you saw the ed code where it kind of hits some of the high points, but it's really up to your consortia or your local board, whoever's approving those courses, to say this is, what we want to see in the job market study. So I don't think we're going to be, reviewing that at the state level. We'll leave it up to the local consortia or local board to determine if that met the, what the ed code calls for. So
okay, perfect. And
it sounds like that's what you're doing anyway. So
yeah, and I just wanted to clarify because I never want to do anything wrong. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Neil,
I
this
see
is
that Mary
Kathy
has her hand up.
responding.
Oh,
Wait, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, I see it looks like you said the 23-24 year will be the first year that our non-WIOA funded agencies will need to have the course approvals done. And it looks
Yeah.
like we will have some training coming up for them.
Yeah, we're working with OTAN to roll out some training. We first have to train the CDE consultants because not many of them are familiar with the non-WIOA CAEP agencies. So I think it's going to take us, there'll be probably some training next month. And then hopefully they'll open that up to any agencies that want to get familiar with that system that the WIOA 2 grantees are already familiar with, but the CAEP funded agencies will have to get used to the course approval process.
Okay, that sounds good. And
Yeah.
in our consortium, we do have, when a agency adds something during the year that was not originally approved through the annual plan, they have a proposal form they submit. And they do include a link to the market study on that proposal that they give to the consortium. It's mainly for information only. I mean, we do approve it, but we just kind of look at it to make sure that it fits within the guidelines of our plan and that it is a desired or needed program within our area. So
That's great. So all they would have to do is just click on the drop down and select the year that they did that, and that would suffice.
okay, perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Looks like Marianne has her hand.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that you can ask your workforce board for specific data for your city or your communities, and they can provide that information. So for example, even though I'm the CAEP coordinator, I'm also staff to the workforce board. So I have access to data that the public does not have access to. And if I just go in and get LMI data, it'll be for LA County, but Glendale is one city within LA County. And so our labor market could be very different than what's on the MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area report. So I get it specifically for Glendale. And for healthcare, we actually did run studies specifically for healthcare and specifically for medical assistants, dental assistants, and certified nursing assistants. And what we were able to do is, yes, we have hospitals in Glendale, but we were able to I was able to pull the list of all of the healthcare companies, organizations in Glendale. So it's a list of all the organizations and their addresses and phone numbers, so we can contact them for internships, externships, and jobs. So it's that specific that they can get it within a community. So even if there isn't a hospital in your specific area, there could be, as we found, lots of medical offices, clinics, surgical centers, smaller facilities that would take some of our people. So we have someone dedicated to just calling those employers and establishing internships, externships for our medical assistants and dental assistants. And then we co-enroll them with WIOA so that WIOA can actually pay for their internships and externships. So they're on the Verdugo Workforce Board payroll while they go through their internships. And so they actually are getting paid to do their internships and externships. So just want to throw it out there. Your workforce board does have access to very specific data. And all they have to do is go in, log in, and pull it for any city or community. If you request it, they should be able to do that for you.
Marianne, who would be, if you don't have great contacts at your local workforce development board, who would you suggest they start with?
I would go to the workforce board director, or in the minutes, you can usually see who their staff person is that is staffing the board, or to the director, and just ask them who who does your LMI data for the board, or who is the analyst that does your local planning and so forth. And they're the ones that typically are in charge of running those reports. We have to report to our board. We have to report it. In Verdugo, we do it monthly and we do it quarterly. But most of the boards have to do it at least quarterly for the board. So there's typically an analyst that's in charge of that.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic.
That's great. Excellent. Excellent resource tip, Marianne. Thank you. I know there was another comment about the Centers of Excellence as another great resource to access labor market information. And in addition to the Workforce Development Board, I think those are some really great resources to be able to dive into for some more extensive labor market information. So thank you.
I think we're caught up on the chat. Holly, do we have anybody else with their hand up?
No, not that I see. Everyone, this is your time to oh, we do. Paul, go ahead, Paul.
Hey, good afternoon. I came in late, so I might have missed this, but 2 questions. One was any update on the healthcare funding opportunity, and then 2, any signals on the May revise that we're looking forward to tomorrow.
Myra, do you want to take the healthcare one?
Yeah, I can provide an update on the 130 million. So our we have been meeting regularly within our interagency work group, and we are looking to finalize these meetings and the details to be able to release the letter of interest no later than before the end of this month of May, fingers crossed. So keep an eye out for that. We are looking to try and target that. You will receive additional marketing, additional information once that is released. We're working on the timeline and the dates for how long that will be made available. So keep a very close eye on that because I know we're working with a very tight time frame in releasing that and collecting the information. So yeah, more details to come. That's the only update that I have, but we're still finalizing those meetings, and we're hoping to come to a conclusion at our next interagency work group meeting, which is next week, and hoping to release the LOI by no later than the end of this month of May.
Okay, and then I can handle the May revised. I don't have an official response, but I've been looking at the budget hearings and the staffing notes, and I guess there is an increased COLA on the table. I don't know if it's a small amount, like another 1 or 3%, whatever, something small, but there's no money for it. So, you know, even if they wanted to do an extra additional COLA, they don't know where they would find this funding to fund it. So I'm not anticipating any change in the May revise for adult ed, but you know, we've always been surprised when it happens. So stay tuned next week. Does that answer your questions, Paul?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay, Kelly.
Sorry. Okay, this might be a little bit in the weeds, and I know this isn't all the member agencies, but I'm just wondering, so we're looking at revising our bylaws, and we're looking at, I'm from San Diego College of Continuing Education, and we're only a 2-member consortium that is ourselves and San Diego Unified Adult Ed. So I know that there's some realignment at the State Department of Juvenile Justice Services. So there are juvenile offenders that are going back to counties that are over 18 years old. Many of them have already completed their secondary school degree, but they're coming back into the facilities operated by the counties. And I'm just wondering if any agencies, or if anybody knows of consortia rather, that actually have your local, whatever would be the equivalent of your juvenile court and community schools. I don't know if the County Office of Eds operate those in every area under the juvenile justice system, but I'm just wondering how folks are dealing with, it's not a huge number, but there are juvenile offenders that are over the age of 18 that are coming back to the counties that I'm wondering how the adult ed services might be being provided in any of the local areas. Is that confusing? I don't mean to confuse, but I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with that with other regions.
Yeah, I'm looking at who's here that might be into jail ed, like Heidi from Contra Costa County. They used to have a jail ed contract. I know Chafee used to, but doesn't do jail ed anymore. Anybody else, feel free to comment. I know in Kathy's region in Ventura, Ventura Adult has the Todd Road jail program, but I'm not sure if anybody's up to speed on kind of the issue you're talking about. I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, because they're not technically in the adult system. They're in the state juvenile system, but they're over the age of 18. So they're like the higher level offenders that are now coming back to the counties. And so most of them, because they've completed their secondary ed degrees, aren't any longer in the K through 12 apportionment system, but many of them, obviously, they're still going to be locked up for a while. And so they're being served. And I think, I'm just wondering, yeah.
So Kelly, they're at the county jail level though?
They're at the juvenile county facility level, yeah.
But they're over 18?
Yeah, because they're higher level offenders. So the state's moving them out of the state system back to the county system, but they're still juvenile offenders.
Huh. Well, Elk Grove, I don't know if anybody's here from Capital Consortia. I know they work with the jail system.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe, Holly, is this something maybe we could get a little group on possibly?
I think so. What I was gonna suggest, Kelly, is if you could actually type out that question and email it into TAP, we will forward that on to some of the consortia that we know do have jail programs. And because there's a difference, right? They can have a jail program, but possibly not have the knowledge you're looking for. So if we can show them exactly what you need, we can gather some responses and see who we can put you in touch with. So
Okay.
TAP can handle that on the backside.
Okay, and I'm not super aware of I know there's legislation that changed recently about it, which is why it's happening at the state level, back to the county probation level. So I'll try to figure out what the
Yeah, because there are, CDE does court and community. They have funding. You know, we have adult ed, we have WEO2 that goes to jail education. And then the chancellor's office, they have jail education programs. County sheriffs have their own jail ed.
right.
And then of course corrections. So I just wonder where this falls in that whole scheme of
Okay.
jail education.
Okay, I'll send a question, Holly.
Great, thank you. And then Neil, I don't know if you can see the chat, but Nancy Miller said, will consortia be required to report on the 3-year plan metrics?
Myron, I would think that's part of the annual plan process where so we're bringing in the data from last year, the 21-22 year. So we would be updating their targets. I don't know if they're reporting out on their, let me see the question there. Reporting out on the 3-year plan metrics. I mean, that's part of the annual plan to review how you're doing, right?
Yeah, so I think the annual plan should address with the questions that are included in the annual plan. You're looking at it from that perspective, how you're, going to strategize towards those metrics. I know that with the 3-year plan, when we did the training, we're also currently working with our NOVA programmers at the moment to update those targets that are currently missing for 21-22 in the 3-year plan. And so we are working on that. I'm hoping that should be completed within the next week or two. And I know a lot of you are currently working on that annual plan, so keep an eye out for that. We'll try and send out some communication once that has been finalized. The annual plan template.
I think that was didn't we say we were going to do a Word document? Is that what you're talking about, Kelly? is kind of like something you can use on your own before you put it into Nova?
Yeah, so we haven't, I'm just gonna say it, we haven't started working on our annual plan yet. So I want to actually, before summer gets out, I want to send some information out in terms of like updates for our strategies and activities that align with the plan. So I want to kind of see what the template is.
Yeah,
So-
Holly or Veronica, weren't we gonna send out an annual plan template in a Word doc?
I believe it's available in Nova. Veronica's
Yes.
internet actually removed her from the meeting. So I'm pulling up Nova right now. Let me just check. I know the annual plan is available.
It is, okay.
So in addition to that, we did work with Veronica to provide an annual plan template. Whenever we sent out the memo, so if you go on, and we'll post it on the chat here, but if you go onto the CAEP TAP website, you'll see the 23-24 annual plan memo, guidance, and I don't think the template's on there, but we do have one, so we'll make sure to make that. Actually, it is on there. So the annual plan templates for 23-24, there's a PDF fillable version. We'll post it on here for you all, but it is accessible.
Thank you.
All right. And then let's see, Karima made a comment. Some agencies might not have their data ready in time to include in the annual plan. I think that, I mean, the annual plan is your annual update of what you're doing and guiding you. So, you know, if not all your data is not ready, it's not like it's up to your members to review and approve, not necessarily the state. So you do what with what you have, right, to move that plan forward. So it's not like you're going to get dinged if your data is not ready. Okay, and Dana confirms that and there it is in the chat. Thanks, Myra.
And Neil, we have Dr. Holder Jackson has her hand up when you're available for the next question.
Thank
Okay.
you. Neil, one of my members has some carryover that they're going to be using for capital outlay, like building improvements, because they're tearing down the adult school where they are, and they're moving someplace else. And so they need to expand just a little bit because they're growing. But it does say in the fiscal management guide that any capital outlay will be closely scrutinized, and it says that they are required to notify the CAEP office of their intent. So who should we notify at the CAEP office about this?
Yeah, for a K-12, this sounds like it's a K-12 adult school.
Yes.
Okay, so they would send a email to CAEP TAP.
Okay.
And say, this is what we're planning to do. This, you know, we got approval from our district. We're following all our procurement, you know, guidelines and whatever other requirements are for renovations and improvements. And then the consortium also approved it. And then CAEP TAP will, if it's K-12, they'll send it to CDE. CDE will review it. If they have any questions, they'll respond directly back to you, but it's just informational, so you don't need state approval.
Okay.
But the state has an opportunity to ask questions and maybe raise concerns if things aren't clear.
Okay.
But really that approval comes, you know, at the district level and at the consortium level.
Okay, great. And I have one other question. One of the members asked about the fiscal management guide because I waited until all of their WASC things were done because I wanted them to review it, and we're going to be talking about it. And they asked me, they said this management guide has been revised several times. Is there a plan in the works to actually just recreate one or update it instead of just updating? Are there plans in the work to create a new one?
I mean, we just updated this, what, a few months ago, Holly?
Yes.
So you mean a wholesale change? I don't think so. Unless
I don't think it's necessary, but again, this is this is the personality of my member, so I'm just relaying the.
I guess it might depend where we're pulling it from. I know the website might have might not have the most, it depends on where on the website you might be pulling it on.
This was the one that we were, it was a memo we were sent along with the updated guide, which I made sure that everyone has it because I'm making sure that I'm picking out certain things I want them to pay attention to, especially for my newest members. But this particular member,
This is the fiscal management guide.
yes, this one
And-
is
Okay.
It was
Very
updated
much.
in March of 23 and is up on the CAEP website.
I advised him this was the most recent one, but if anyone's familiar with DISC, he is very much the F personality where he will follow those rules to the letter.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if they want more specificity, I would say, yeah, we could have, maybe provided more specificity on the allowable uses, but that's so difficult to, provide specific direction because there's so many different variations on use of funds. So that's why we always suggest if you have a specific question on use of funds, email the TAP and then they'll coordinate with the state to get a response. So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
yeah, sure.
On that same subject, I recently had to do that. I did send my request on to TAP. Had to, qualify it a little differently. I'm noticing that some of our K-12 districts are seeing the use of some expenditures for paying for oversight of the adult schools a little differently than it might have been that it should be. So got good clarification from TAP on that. And I'm hoping that that's going to take care of this issue. But even as they read that fiscal guideline, they still are referring back to the California School Accountability Manual. And we're thinking there was a conflict there. So I'm hoping we have it straightened out, but it was something that had not come to us before about funds being used at the district office to pay for their salaries when they're not necessarily hands-on with our program. So
Right.
kind of an interesting scenario.
Yeah, admin costs and indirect costs always get a little squirrely.
Right. And some see it as direct cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
And
Were there anything in the chat that there was a lot of stuff in the chat, but I don't know if there was a question.
Crystal had asked, but I think possibly we answered it. They need both district and consortium approval. I believe that was regarding the capital outlay request.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, because the consortium is approving their budget and work plan. And so if they are going to put something large like renovations or capital improvements, that would be in their budget. And so the consortium would approve that, as well as the local district has to approve it too and make sure they're following all the district guidelines.
Okay. And then Janae just asked if a member needs the December 30th, 31st extension to spend down their 2021-22 funds, how do we go about submitting that request? And I believe Neil is, and Myra, isn't that an automatic, and Nova, they can put in their corrective action plan, which will, is it the corrective action plan that grants that?
So, let's see. So this is so it's funds expire. So there's a couple of things working here. So you have 30 months to spend the money. And so if this is 21-22 funds, so that would be funds that were given out July 1, 2021. So that would be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Then we're getting into, okay, so the funds expire at the end of this year, like she said. We don't really extend past the 30 months. So 30 months is plenty. Plus you have this carryover legislation, with the 12 months. So we're hoping 30 months is plenty, but we've never extended it. That's why you should do like an allocation amendment, or you have carryover guidance to move that money around so that you don't lose it. What we don't want to have in your March report that you're returning money to the state. So, Janae, you should be looking to maybe move that money to another member if they can't spend it down by December 31st of this year.
And I think what she's referring to is the 2-year benchmark of funding with the 60-day extension. So that the funds are for 2 years, however, they don't expire until 30 months. So usually from July till December, they consider that the extension to finally spend those funds. And Myra, you may know on that, I believe it's just in Nova, it will give them a prompt when they're doing their reporting.
Initially, but I think what would be helpful, we can go back and confirm if you wouldn't mind, Janae, sending an email through CAEP and we'll coordinate to ensure what will be flagged or what the process can be, to look into it a little bit more carefully, because there might be something in place, but as we're working on updates with AB 1491, we want to make sure we can provide what that's going to look like moving forward. And no carryover would be a big.
Yeah, to Myra's point, we are changing the use of that corrective action plan. So you're not going to have the ability, nor would it be required after the 2 years to ask. We're going to use that for the 1-year consortia corrective action reminder, I think. I don't know. We'll have more details, like Myra said, when we roll out the Nova enhancements.
Can you send the information to everyone? Because I think a lot of people might be in that same boat as Janae. I know we will be. So if it can be sent out to everyone, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. TAP, once we get this information, once we get the question answered with the definitive answer, we will email all consortia leads and members with that information. And then I know Dana has her hand up, but quickly, Cheryl Carter asked, can the consortium go back and amend the carryover threshold?
You have to wait until next year if you already certified your CFAD.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you've already submitted that, submitted your CFAD, you will have to wait until next year.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think we're ready for Dana.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to go back to the capital project thing. We've only done that once with one large capital project, but the little ones, I mean, like the little ones that involve maybe one classroom out, retrofitting one classroom or preparing it for a program or something like that. Do those require consortium approval and informing the state?
It would be a good practice to inform the state, and if it's part of their budget, it would be a good practice for the member to alert the consortia that they're doing that.
They
when
do.
They submit. Yeah, okay, then that's fine.
Yeah, no,
But,
the group knows what they're doing, but
right, I would just send just a little FYI email up to CAEP TAP just to
really?
cover yourself.
Even for the little ones?
Yeah, just because it's all part of that object code.
Okay.
It's not like we're going to say anything, but just so there's not a compliance issue. It's not even compliance because it's an informational email. But I'm just saying.
Okay, and like most of this stuff is in our plans and everything anyway, so.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just an FYI.
Just to cover our.
No more than a couple of lines.
Okie doke, got it. Thank you.
On that same subject, we started just doing that this year in our consortium where if when they turn their budget in, I see they have money allocated in the capital outlay, then we look into that and ask them, what is this for? Or what are you spending this for? And then we take that, send a real short email to the CAEP office, CAEP CAP office. And so far they've all come back, it's been reviewed, no further questions. So we approve it at the consortium level. But we kind of start with the budget. And if people put capital outlay money in the budget, then we kind of want to know, hey, what are you using that for? So.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Holder Jackson, I had private messaged you. I wasn't sure if your hand was still up from your previous question or if you had another question. She's on mute. Oh, she took it down. Okay, it was just
Yes,
accidentally.
sorry,
left
I
up.
thought it was down. Sorry.
Absolutely, no worries. So then the next we don't have anything in the chat. So Karen has her hand up for the next question.
Thank you, Holly. Neil, I'll direct this to you. I am with Woodland Adult Education. I have a large CTE renovation project going on. I know that prior to Eric Pomeroy's passing, he had discussed it, I believe, with you, and he sent a letter up to CAEP on my behalf. The project has grown in scope somewhat just because construction prices have increased. My current consortium director, Lori Lee Neeson, is aware of this project. I believe she spoke with Carolyn Zachary about it, but do we need to, and I do have district approval and my consortium, other consortium members know about it. Do I need to do anything else?
If you received a email back from Cape Tap saying like, hey, no further questions, and you have that on file, that would be fine. But if you don't, I would just send an updated email to Cape Tap,
Okay.
and then we can reply to it and you can keep that on file.
That for record. And should I reference that, Eric Pomeroy had initially submitted? Okay.
Yeah, that would be fine.
I may have an email from him that he forwarded, but again, with the increase in costs, there's nothing official that I know of for that. So I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, that would be great.
And
Great,
Karen,
thank you so much.
we keep all of our emails at TAP.
Okay.
So I will go back through. I'm making a note right now.
Okay.
I will go back through and I will search for any email we may have received from Eric and or Laura Lee. And I can always, if I find something, I will send that to you. If the price did change, like Neil said maybe just a quick update to let them know the price has changed, and then we'll just continue it from there. So I will be in touch I'll let you know either way.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see any other questions. Dr. Holder Jackson? No? Okay.
Let's see. I don't know what's the cutting edge. I don't know if there's any other. We already dealt with the healthcare, dealt with carryover. Talked about annual plan. What about data? Anybody have any data questions? Have you looked at the data? 21, 22, it's out there. We haven't had a webinar on it, but it's out there. So feel free to.
I have looked at the launch board. I was pleasantly surprised to see the pipeline has the 21, 22 data. I was scratching my head. Some of it didn't line up with our CASAS numbers. So I mean, that's something we've seen before, including participants served kind of off by a couple thousand. So I have to follow up with folks on that. It'd be nice to see them. It's fine if, if there's rounding errors or they're off by like 50 or 60, it could explain that away, but in the thousands, it's a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah.
We do have a webinar scheduled for May 18th. May 18th at 12 o'clock. That is, we're working with our partners from West Ed to put forth this webinar and go over the release of the AEP 6.0 21-22 data that is now available on the launch board. So I do believe Cape Tap has sent that out. Check out the events page so you can register for that. We'll be collaborating with our partners, and we'll be able to help provide additional clarity if there's any questions specifically around those numbers or mismatching information.
Great. One other question actually is, and maybe it's a webinar topic, but just looking for examples of adult schools working with their community colleges on the AB 1705 compliance and, providing opportunities for remedial math supports, so we're exploring that in San Joaquin County, and just always looking for good examples in the field that we can build on, so we can support students that are showing up at the college but just need a tune up in math, and so some of those opportunities for those kind of classes aren't there. So we're looking at things like Math Jam, or offering kind of a prep class at the adult school but always interested to hear about what else is happening out there.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul, we used to do a lot of boot camps and refreshers. We haven't revisited that since the pandemic, but they were out there. I just wonder, like you said, do a little environmental scan of who's doing what now. Yeah, it doesn't, my recollection is a little too old going back pre-pandemic, unfortunately. So I don't know if anybody else had anything to share with Paul on that one.
We did have a comment in the chat from Dana that said, Paul, a problem in the past with the LB was the participants at CC was not defined as the same as participants in K-12. So that was a comment. And
Okay.
Jamie did say launch board doesn't always match what we show through TE either.
Yeah, I see a question or
Yes.
a comment from Janae. That's an interesting one. Quarterly expenditure reports. So I would just say things that you should be looking out for is your admin costs. I know this has been an issue where people wanted, and Dana has brought this up to our attention among other people, but wouldn't it be great if we were able to separate our consortia admin from our regular program budget and expenditures? And I think there's a way in Nova that you can separate out your budget so you can show what's admin, what's consortia related, but we're still working on the expenditure part of that, and we haven't fixed that yet. But that would be a red flag, because if it's a carryover issue, you don't want to be flagged for carrying all the consortia money over when every member in your consortia shares that responsibility, and all of a sudden that one member gets flagged for that. So that would be one thing I would look for. I don't know. Oh, go ahead, Holly.
Another one to always look for is being overspent in any object code. If you get a red exclamation point to the far right of an object code, that means you have spent more than you budgeted. And you'll want to go back and do a budget revision to move funds from one category to that category to cover your expenses. It's always easier to do that prior to Q4. Once Q4 happens, we cannot go back and open it up. But Veronica is, I will assume, Myra and Neil, that Veronica will be handling the Nova portion of that quarterly expense reporting. If she is, she will drill down into those error codes. And if she doesn't, yes, once you submit and certify Q4, Kelly, you're correct. We can't change it once it's certified. I'm sure she will drill down into those error codes you're looking that you should be on the lookout for. And if not, we can get something planned. We're always available to do one-on-one Zooms with you and your consortia or consortium members if you would like that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if any consortia directors have kind of ways they look at, their 3-year plan and the work plan, and then how they match that up with their budget. So if someone's going to be doing a project, they'll know what object codes to look for. So let's say they say they're going to do renovations, but there's nothing in object code 5000, that would be a red flag. Or if they're expanding their instruction or opening new classes and their object code 1000 and 2000 and 3000 haven't increased, that could be a red flag that they're not increasing despite saying they're going to expand. I don't know if anybody else has any tricks that they use to kind of catch those things before it gets too late. I don't know if that's what Janae's referring to, but
I think the other really important red flag now going forward is not hitting your benchmarks. So your projected expenses for the year, you set those up when you set up your budget and work plan quarterly. Now with AB 1491, if you fall below your projected percentage spent, it will give you an exclamation. And I would say that's something that you'll want to be just aware of.
Well, that's right. Myra, do you want to go over like the little flags we're going to have in Nova that show at the consortia level and then at the member level how they're doing against their spend down?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is to not confuse everyone, I think a visual will be helpful. And so once we have these updates finalized, we will be having a webinar specifically tied to these NOVA enhancements with AB 1491, because it will be very helpful since there will be two types of tracking within the system that will be taking place. One within the member level, the various flags, and then of course at the consortia level. So there will be different screens, different sections, different flags for you to be able to view and track this information. We're hoping you're also going to be able to pull reports to be able to look at that carryover. One of the key things that we mentioned in the previous trainings is as you're working on completing those expenditure reports, ensuring a timely submission of Q4, as that will be a critical time period when we're looking at what that carryover balance is going to be. Of course, we're about to start we're getting ready. Feels like we're already in the summer, but we still got 2 more months. We're getting ready to jump into 23-24 fiscal year. Remember, that will be the official starting clock for the first year of tracking at the consortia level and the member level. And then once we put forth that webinar that will walk you through what those flags are going to be tracking, you'll be able to see within that 1 year period who gets marked for having that consortia level carryover, and then of course a flag for the member carryover, and then sections where you'll be able to see the actual balances of carryover. So stay tuned for that. We'll be working with our TAP to put forth those dates, or the date once we have this webinar and these updates completed in NOVA.
Thank you, Myra. And Neil, I don't know if you saw Dana's comment. She said, right, budget, but not expenses. Please fix. You promised, Neil.
Well, we're working on it. Checks in the mail.
And then Janae just asked, is setting up a PLC for sharing ideas regarding the teacher shortage still in the works?
I think she requested that last webinar to TAP.
Okay, so Janae, I can check with Veronica. And I can answer you via email. You're welcome. So with that, I think we're at 1 o'clock. Does anyone have any final questions before we close out? And Myra and Neil, do you guys have any final comments for the group?
Yeah, just want to say thank you everyone for joining us during your lunch hour, even though we had to postpone the original training that we had for today. We appreciate all the questions, all the feedback, all the input. We look forward to continuing to provide you with additional updates. I know we have a couple of events coming up and some soon to be scheduled, such as the AB 1491 rollout. We'll continue to work with you all and collect feedback as well to help improve those processes and be able to connect and communicate on how this is going to roll out. So thank you all. Neil, I don't know if you have any other last words to share.
Oh, just that it's always fun getting together and seeing some of you or hearing from you and then people sharing. So it's really nice to, get together and chat like this rather than having some kind of structure. So anything we can do and to help you guys, I think doing this more often, like someone suggested, would be great.
Yes, and that's what I was just going to say, as Janae just asked if we could possibly do it quarterly. We have received a lot of comments about how helpful these office hours are, and quarterly is a request from the field. So we will, Janae, they will take that back. They will see what we can do about that. So great. Okay, I think that wraps everything up. We're going to go ahead. Myra, thank you so much. Neil, thank you.
And Holly, I'm going to stay on. Jamie wanted to ask me a question, if that's all right.
Sure, I'll keep the room open. I will stop the recording. Okay. I just want to thank all the participants for joining us today. And please, if you have any questions that in 5 minutes you think about that you think, oh, I should have asked that, feel free to email TAP and we will forward that on to Myra and Neil for their review, and we will get back to you. All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.